Hello, my name is Dr. Talia Marcheggiani. I'm going to read to you guys from an article I posted on my blog called On Healing Regret. This was an article that I wrote inspired by a friend who reached out to me with an issue he was having about looking back on the past and feeling regret in his life. And I gave him some exercises to do and some questions to think through to help process those past events and move forward with his life in his preferred sense of self. On healing regret. Someone, I think it was Eckhart Tolle, once said that when it comes to mental illness, anxiety is worry about the future while depression is concerned for the past. While I'm not entirely or even nearly convinced that this is true, there's little doubt that those with both depression and anxiety can get caught in the paralysis of going over past events and regrets in their minds. Therefore, healing regret becomes important for reframing our past experience and present identity and improving mood and self-esteem. Regret is a sticky emotion. It reminds us of who we once were. It's the cold hand on the shoulder and the voice that whispers, "Remember," in our ear, when we're getting a little too confident, when we're actually feeling happy with who we are now and how we've evolved. My patients will often tell me that they find themselves in a spiral of low mood. Their minds are often playing and replaying past events over and over. They mull over painful memories until they are distorted, painting themselves as the villain the more they rewind and press play on these cognitive loops. Remembering in this way smears gray over their entire sense of self and discolors the possibilities they see for themselves in the future, and worse, their abilities to take meaningful action in the present. It leads to deep feelings of self-hate and worthlessness. It can cause feelings of hopelessness. And so when my patients are struggling with this, or friends, as I mentioned, I tell them this. Regret, while painful, is not always bad. It is a reflection, a comparison between two people, the person you are now and the person that you used to be. When this comparison is particularly vast, when the you used to be is particularly painful to remember, then remember this, that you have changed. Regret comes with looking back with pain, wishing we'd taken a different course of action than the one we took. However, when we flip this concept over and examine its other side, we realize that in order to feel regretful about past events, we are now acknowledging that we, the present we, would not have performed the same action or made the same choice now. The flip side is not that we're bad. It's a reflection of our goodness. We've learned and evolved, and we're different. Looking back is different from looking forward. Our lessons are what shape us. The fact that what we regret is proof that we learn, that we grow and change into better, preferred versions of ourselves. If we sit in the experience of regret, we can feel proud that if faced with the same situation today, we'd be better, because we're different. Regret doesn't mean that we're bad people, it's proof that we're good people. In order to regret the past, we've had to have changed who we are. To transform mulling over painful life choices and past actions, I recommend a writing exercise, inspired by narrative therapy. In every story of regret and badness, there's also a story of values, skills, preferred identity, and goodness. The next time you find yourself cycling through feelings of regret, grab a pen and paper and answer the following questions. And I'll post these questions below the video. So the first question is going through the events that are going over in your mind and writing out a timeline of them. So question number 1 is, what happened? What were the events that transpired? What did you do? What did other people in the story do? What were the events leading up to the action you and others took? What was the context surrounding you at the time? What influenced your decision to act as you did? And what do you remember thinking before taking the actions or immediately afterwards? And you can choose what sort of details to include in this question. Number 2 is, looking back, what would you have done differently? What parts are particularly painful to remember? What actions or events do you regret, if not all? So in this stage, you're breaking down what actually happened and piecing out what parts you're regretting from the viewpoint of the person that you are now. Number 3, what might these regrets say about you now? What might it say about you to know that you would have acted differently if you were faced with the same situation now? What values do you embody that enable you to recognize that what you did in the past was regretful for you? Number 4, looking at these values, have you shown you have this value in the past in other situations? Do you have a particular story you remember? So for example, if the value is honesty, let's say the story that you regret is that you lied to somebody, and that event is particularly painful because looking back, you realize that you're not somebody that values lying, that you value honesty, in fact, and that event wasn't in accordance with who you are and what you value. You might want to look back and think of a time when you were very honest, perhaps in the face of temptation to not be honest or in adverse circumstances. Number 5, how has that value or skill that you just answered in number 4 made an impact on the lives of others? In the story that you remembered, what might the actions you took have meant to the people around you? Number 6 is, how do you embody this value in the present? Where does it show up in the actions you take today? And number 7 is, how might you embody this value in the future? What actions might you take while remembering this value? And what does remembering this value and the story that you remembered in question number 4 make possible for your future? So going through this 7-part writing exercise can help us look back with more compassion for the person we were, that person who was growing into the person that we are now. It might make possible ways that we can rectify the past if anyone or anything was impacted by the decisions and the choices that we made that we regret. Perhaps it might mean an apology, paying forward a good act, or taking different steps in a similar present situation, or even moving on and letting go of our tendency to hold on to the memory. So sometimes patients will write an apology letter if the person that was impacted by the event that they regret has deceased, or if they're not comfortable reaching out to them, they might just write a letter and not send it. Or it might involve a real-world apology, or it might involve donating to a charity that's meaningful to you, if that might represent something around the event that you regret. So take the time, do the exercises, and if you have any questions, send me a note. My email is connect@taliand.com, or you can leave a comment under the video. Take care. Bye.